Slides. So sprint retrospective, this is going to be a short little section. All I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what lessons I've pulled away from this and what we're going to do. I kind of talked already about that in the sprint review. But if you have any feedback, you're watching this on VOD, write this stuff in the comments. I will be reading the comments. Tweet me, Instagram me, LinkedIn message me, whatever you got to do. Send me the note, because I would love to hear from you and understand what is actually going on here, about what your thoughts are, about how I can, as a solo, further organize myself and keep myself focused. So, that being said, let's get to the retrospective, shall we? Boop, there we go. Okay, so the good things that we did. The good things that I managed to get done were using the default Office tools for project management and documentation instead of using developer tools. For those of you that know me personally, you know that I'll fall back into a coding tool. I make things more complicated than I need to. It's what I do. It's because I have these delusions. I want to call it, I mean, let's just break it down. I have delusions of grandeur. Okay? I want to build an empire before I actually have something before the empire has something to offer. Someone once told me, build a stage, before you build your stage, build a play. Or build the show. And you know what? That's the whole thing here. I have this whole, I usually try to build a business, but I have nothing to show for it. I have nothing to sell. And this is the thing, like a video game, I want to make the video game so badly that I'm not even worried about what the video game is. But I'm like, the key is it has to be my video game. So doing the project management tools, it's out of my comfort zone for sure, but it's forcing me to be simpler, simplify things for myself, for everyone moving forward as I share more and more stuff. And ultimately, it's a better kind of space for that. And I'm hoping to, like I said, include people in a sort of a stakeholder subscription, not like a non-paid subscription, just you're going to join the early access kind of thing and give you access to some of the progress of the stream so you have a little bit more interaction with me and input on the game. So it makes it more shareable, the content, using Office tools, and it keeps the designer friendly. So that was the good thing that I did for sure. The less good, I got a few of these items for sure, because this is our first sprint, we're learning. What I learned is that an event during a sprint results in the less or the same amount of time being done. So I originally had thought, because I was going to Seattle for a while, I had a lot of days where I had like just no family commitment. It was just more a matter of taking care of myself and getting a bite to eat, and I could just do what I wanted in the evening, other than doing some networking like I do for work all the time. But yeah, it ended up being like I kind of just chilled a lot. I burnt a lot of that time reading and just doing other stuff, because it was kind of like my first time of like just kind of some dedicated me time. So I have to realize that any event, whether I think it's going to improve or decrease productivity, I need to really see it as it's going to either decrease it, it's likely going to decrease it because it will be a distraction, and I need to plan for that and set expectations, because I overplanned for what we had going on in the previous sprint, or over allocated. And ultimately, developer brain is constantly distracting when designing. I've talked about that a lot already. I don't need to go into it much further. But this needs to be considered when I'm working on deciding what tasks to work on. And lastly, I need to factor in production values. Haven't talked too much about this. I mentioned it briefly. Doing the musician purpose in terms of the design and really fleshing out how that all worked and everything. So the good thing I got out of that was the whole meta framework for how a quest line would go in the game. The bad part was that I figured out the musician one, the one that I was sure I was going to do, its production values were just too high for what I have moving forward. There's a whole musical element to it that, to get decent payoff, I'm going to even say it's great, to get a payoff that I'm happy with, you have to be a pretty decent, I'd have to get a pretty decent guitarist, and I don't have any production value for that, right? I have no finances to pay someone, and everyone gets paid. So I'm pulling that back for now. It's good that it's documented. I have another one in the bank now, but it's a matter of what is the next one, and we'll talk about it in a bit. In terms of lessons, so the design is helping me sort of the production value early on, which is amazing. That's really important. So graphics, music, gameplay, like what level of commitment is there in these purposes, and I can kind of do that privately with a handful of people, get those details. The state diagrams that I managed to produce, that one big one, are pretty much scope documents for game development. It's more specifically gameplay development. So states, transitions, and triggers is what you need to identify what's going on in a specific event or a specific thing, or a specific level in my case. And again, I need to focus on design more. That's not my comfort area, but it's starting to come together. But I need to do more of the design than development moving forward. And to do that, I'm going to focus on automation of development. I am going to automate my build, automate as much as I can, so that way when I'm coding, but this pushing out the DevOps and all this other stuff that I love to get myself lost in, it's on the back, it's away. It's when it's done, and I'm going to invest heavily in that. So the calls to action that I have, design before development. So when I schedule something on a sprint, I will always do a design task first before I start coding. Design needs to take for the driver's seat on this, because I will fall back into my comfort zones every single time. I'm going to keep using the office tools for planning, for everything. OneNote, I'm going to use SharePoint. I'm just going to see how far I can take these tools without having to customize them or trying to write a custom piece of code. But I want to see how far I can get while keeping everything kind of documented in a big hub. And last but not least, I need to invest more in automation. Keep my hands out of the code as much as possible. So I'm going to be coding. It's going to be fine. But like I said, automate. That way when it's done, it commits and it's just pushed it out. So we'll get that going. It'll move. And I can do that. I can do that well. Stakeholder Q&A. So if you have any questions in the chat or on the VOD, this is your time to pause the video for a minute, take a sec, drop your chat question there. I'm gonna go over to me for a sec. There, that's the end of that deck.